I'm just saying this right now. If you haven't picked up a Promethean princess yet, you probably should. What's up, guys? It's Yugi Bros, and today I wanted to talk about market-related things. Now, when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh's market, there are tips and tricks you can learn to kind of always be ahead of the curve. Now, I understand it's Konami, so not everything's set in stone. Sometimes we get reprints out of the blue, sometimes there's OTS reprints and stuff like that. But generally, you should be able to kind of know when reprints are coming and how to know when to pick up cards and when to sell cards based on patterns that Konami has had over the years. And I'm going to start today off with an interesting one, and that is Phantom Nightmare. Every set that comes out at the beginning of the year has the longest rotation of non-reprinted cards until the inevitable tins of the following year. So the way the tins work, for people that don't know, is the tins usually always follow this pattern of reprinting the previous year's 4 core sets. And the core sets are the ones that are always 100 cards, have some TCG exclusive archetype, have some OCG imports at the end of the pack in the 90s usually in the set number, and in the 80s it's usually the TCG ones. It used to be set in stone where the 80s were always TCGs and the 90s were always OCGs, but now lately, these days, there's more TCG exclusives than OCGs, so that's just how that works. And if you need to know more about descriptions between TCG and OCG, I have a video on that. Link is in the description. But basically, the 4 core sets over the year always come in the following year's megatins. So, for example, this year we have Phantom Nightmare, then we have Legacy of Destruction, then we have Infinite Forbidden, and then we close out the year with Rage of the Abyss. So those would be the 4 core sets of this year, which means in 2025, the Megatins will realistically have those 4 packs covered, as well as other random stuff over the course of this year. Lately, the tins have now included some side sets as well, and those are usually also included from the same year. But take it with a grain of salt, because Konami likes to also change it up every now and then. For example, last year's 2023 Megatins did not include Power of the Elements, which was from 2022, which was kind of what kicked off the Tier 0 format between Tier Element and Sprite coming into the game. And that was because that set had an unlimited print that came out relatively quickly after the original release because prices were so outrageously high in that set. So they left them out of the tins because that was their quote-unquote reprint. And then put them in this year's tins. Now, I don't think that'll happen again this year, unless we have another set quite like Pote. But let's assume we stay on the same list. So, the reason I'm bringing up Phantom Nightmare specifically is because these cards have the longest timeline before the reprints happen, since the reprints always happen between August, September in the Megatins. This will have to wait over a year to get its fair share of reprints. And because of that, cards in this set will tend to hold more value than other cards in other sets because they're closer to reprints. Now, it doesn't always account for everything, depending on how meta-relevant the card is. It'll always just be an expensive card. And I have up specifically the non-QCs in this set. If you look at some things here, there's always a chance that they'll get reprinted in like a January set like Maze of Millennia or something like Thrust did. But usually, if the card isn't super meta impacting, it kind of just waits. Now, the reason I bring up Promethean Princess specifically is this has the best chance, I think, on Phantom Nightmare in everything that exists here currently to get a reprint earlier than everything else. But if it did, I don't really think the price currently changes too much depending on what it was in. So right now it's around after this one goes, it's like $27 and higher. The way I look at this is this card, if it doesn't get its random mid reprint, will hold the most value. Kind of like what Underworld Goddess did for a while in previous years, where it wasn't really money, but then it kind of just trickled up and people kind of just let it go under the radar, and then before you knew it was like $40, $45. Promethean Princess is a card that was, for a while, sitting around like $17, $18, as you can see here in the earlier months of the year. But it's just trickled on up, and the thing is, this card can be used in a lot of different decks, mostly, obviously, Fire, because it does lock you into firewalls on the field, but it's still a card that, it's like a staple in that situation, and you'd want to have at least one copy of it, no matter what type of format we were going into, just to have it, right? Now, I understand in Fire formats, it's going to have a higher value than it would in non-Fire formats, so if Snake Eyes ever did get hit again, and get knocked to a level where it's just no longer the meta, then I understand this could drop, but I still think this card is worth holding on to at least one of to have it. And that said, you're looking at a value here that has just steadily been increasing over the course of the last several months, as we can see here with the market price history chart. It's just something I would probably pick up one of rather than not, especially now because it seems to just continually be going up. Like, this is the biggest spike it's had in the last month than it's had basically in its entire lifetime so far since its original release. This is something I would just grab to make sure you have it rather than not. And even if it did get a reprint, I don't expect that reprint to be until like next year in the January area section, right? In one of those reprint sets, like a maze set or something. So this is only going to go up, and obviously it's not going to be in this year's tins because it's from this year's sets. So just something to keep in mind, guys. But if I'm wrong, let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
You should subscribe to Yu-Gi Bros, otherwise I'll erase what little life you have left. I am a god of destruction after all.